The November 26, 2012 meeting of the Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Boyce. Chairman Hanna.
Here.
Mr. Willie Lightfoot is excused. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Michikay. Mr. O'Brien. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Yolovich.
Is there anyone signed up for public forum this evening?
There are no public forum speakers this evening.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. This time I would like to invite Mr. Scott Adair, the Chief Financial Officer, to come up and present the proposed 2013 Monroe County operating budget as it pertains to the Public Safety Committee. Are we in the way here? Shall I move?
Thank you, Chairman Hanna, for the opportunity to present the 2013 proposed county operating and grant budget for the Public Safety Committee this evening. We are looking at a budget this year that's slightly different in the presentation than what we've done in the past. There's three components to our budget summary page this year. Our comparable operating budget 2012 to 2013 is up approximately $4.8 million or 0.6%. One of the items that we've talked a little bit about in the legislature, and we'll talk more about as we move forward in the committees in Human Services and Ways and Means, and then ultimately at the legislature meeting, is the operating budget Medicaid swap option. This proposed budget basically has us opting out of the Medicaid swap. As many of you are familiar, we opted into this program in 2007. The state legislature has offered us an opportunity to opt out of it at this point in time. And after having reaped $30 million worth of savings in Medicaid costs, we are now moving towards the more customary capped and progressively downward Medicaid cost trends that the state government is allowing us. And ultimately, we have our grants budget, which is down 0.2% from last year. The public safety portion of the budget deals significantly in grants. There's approximately $19 million in grants in each of the various components of our operating budget or of our grant budget for public safety. The proposed county budget maintains the property tax rate at $8.99. It complies with both the 2007 County Taxpayer Protection Act and the state's property tax cap. And next slide will show you how we're doing that. Our mandated spending is up 8.7% from last year. Our non-mandated spending is up 1.6%. This is the spending that is subject to the Taxpayer Protection Act. As many of you are aware, the CPI for this year is 2.0%. So the budget as presented this evening allows us to stay below that dollar amount, and it allows us to be in compliance with that act. In addition, our non-mandated user fee-supported activities, those are things like the hospital, the airport, our pure waters, and solid waste are effectively up 0.5%. We have four departments that make up the Public Safety Committee this evening, as every evening goes. But inside of our budget, there's four departments: the Public Defender, the District Attorney, the Sheriff's Office, and Public Safety. I almost drew a blank on that one. As you can see by the budget here, the Public Defender's Office, the appropriations are 100% mandated. They are subsequently almost flat from the prior year. The difference between 2012 and 2013 is a grant that the public defender has received regarding indigent legal services. 87% of the public defender's budget are personnel costs. And you'll also note in the budget book for the public defender a significant change as far as the presentation goes. We have effectively, for purposes of operations, not necessarily the program side of the public defender's office, have lumped all of the different various departments that they work through: criminal trials, family court, and appeals, have been consolidated into one public defender's office from an appropriations standpoint. thus to allow for the operations and the purchasing and the payroll to be processed that much more efficiently. These particular areas will continue to be tracked by the public defender, but from an expense standpoint are no longer necessary for any additional reporting purposes. Moving into the district attorney's budget, the district attorney's budget is another public safety area that is flat from last year, effectively up about $30,000. This budget is predominantly 87% personal services and benefits. You'll notice in the budget book a significant reorganization plan, and the pie chart, the graphs kind of show that. The organizational chart shows that. Ultimately, you'll see a special victims trial division, which includes domestic violence, elder abuse, and child abuse, and a new economics crime bureau in this year's budget. Overall, the funding for the district attorney's office is flat. They receive approximately $1.7 million in grants in this proposed budget. The next area of the Public Safety Committee's purview is the Public Safety Department. This department approximately up to almost $2 million in appropriations from last year, $75.5 million from $73.7 million. There's really three primary areas of appropriations in the Public Safety Department. They're probation, public safety communications, and 911 emergency communications. We've noted two increasing expenditures here, one being in the 911 emergency communications area, the other being in the public safety communications area. Those increases are our contract with the city and our contracted payment with our Public Safety Local Development Corporation. Small portion of the Public Safety Department is made up of personal service costs. That's primarily because most of these costs, especially in the 911 center area, is a contract or a contracted service with the city, so it doesn't get included in our personnel costs. Grants for public safety are approximately $5.2 million at the present time in this budget. What you will notice as we go through, and I'm sure we'll highlight this as we go through some of the questions, some of the areas inside of public safety, like the Office of Emergency Management, significantly down as far as appropriations go. That's because those are grants that are received throughout the year that this body approves, and that would ultimately amend their budget as they go through that process. The fourth and final area of the Public Safety Committee is the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department's appropriations are up approximately $3.8 million. Primary driver of these costs being up are salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits total 78% of the total appropriations for the Sheriff's Department. You also noted some increases in contractual services for the Sheriff's Department, including their male jail medical contract. And a new item this year is an appropriation provided for lateral hires from other departments. A recent state law has allowed for communities, as we see all too prevalent between police departments, is individuals moving from town police departments to sheriffs and vice versa, or from the city. The state has tried to put in a mechanism to pay back the, I'll call it, rated department for the services, for the costs of providing training to those employees. So we've included $175,000 in the sheriff's budget for lateral transfers from other departments in this upcoming year, assuming that those dollars will be used through the recruiting process, as the sheriff's department is in the process of doing recruiting as we speak, and we'll start a class in February, I believe it is. Sheriff's budget is approximately $11.7 million worth of grants. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation for public safety. And once I get back to the table, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adair. I'd like to thank all of the department heads for all their hard work in putting together this budget so that Mr. Adair can present this. And you will now take some questions. Are there any questions for Mr. Adair? Legislator O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, and through you, a couple of questions. Starting, I think, with the Sheriff's Department and specifically the jail. Page 389 talks about participant hours in the inmate work program, and it looks like the participant hours has dropped by about 10,000 hours since 2011. I was wondering why we saw such a significant drop in participant hours in the inmate work program. Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, I apologize. We don't have anyone here from the Sheriff's Department at this particular point in time, so that is a question that we will get back to you with an answer on.
Okay, and through you, would that be true for court security questions as well? Do we need somebody from the Sheriff's Department to answer a question on court security? Specifically, I'll ask the question, then we can see if it can be answered.
Thank you.
The unreimbursed costs, or the net county share for court security, was only $64,574 in 2011, and it goes from $64,000 in 2011 to $594,000 in 2013. And I'm wondering why the net county share was increasing so dramatically. That's on page 390.
Through the chair, we can answer that one. When it comes to the appropriations side, we hopefully will have the answer. When it comes to probably performance measures, we may not. Effectively, what's happened is that there are a number of new items that are no longer being reimbursed from the state for court security. Those include tuition, retiree hospital insurance, for a portion of them, retiree dental, workers' comps, liability, and information service charges. And all of those items are no longer reimbursed by the state. A portion of those are no longer reimbursed by the state.
Okay, thank you. So through you, is there anything we can do to reverse that, or is that just another thing that we have to suck up and find a way to live with it?
Through the chair, we're hoping that come January 1st, you may be able to help us with that and get some things changed in the state legislature.
Ask a silly question, I know, yeah.
No such thing as a silly question.
Thank you, Mr. Adair. In the probation division, next to you, Mr. Chairman, every year we appropriate a little more than $100,000 for overtime, and it looks like the actual numbers appear well over $300,000, as was in the 2011 budget. The actual costs seem to be significantly more than the budgeted amounts, and I'm wondering if we would consider it to be time to hire more probation officers to reduce the overtime costs, through you, Mr. Chairman? Or I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about current caseload in the probation division and how many vacancies are we planning to hire more probation officers, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, I would ask the head of our probation department, Bob Burns, to speak to the caseload issue regarding the costs and the overtime. That is something that we manage internally and provide the funding through what would be the regular personnel services or salary line of the budget for that. So where there is a vacancy, those dollars would then be used to cover the overtime in the cases where we're not able to hire new individuals for those particular positions. But as far as caseloads go, I would turn to Bob.
Through the chair, Bob Burns from the Office of Probation Community Corrections. There are multiple caseload sizes. There's no one number. The one that is most often referred to is the number of adult offenders assigned to each probation officer. That number has been quite stable in the area of about 130 per probation officer for the past few years. We can't control that number. It depends on judges' sentencing patterns. It depends on the number of people who violate while on probation or continue to serve their full terms. But it's been stable over the past many years.
Thank you. Turning next to it's page 502 in the budget, the Central Police Division. There's a chargeback labeled FS-PS Central Police, and it's going from an actual number of $61,752 in the 2011 to a budgeted amount of in 2013 of $293,000. I'm just wondering if we had an explanation as to why that was and what that is and why the increase there. Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, as we talked about during last year's budget process, that is for the increased usage in air cards that are happening with the Rochester Police Department as well as the town police departments. And ultimately what that does is those charges are ultimately charged back to those appropriate agencies for their payment.
Okay. Just a couple last questions, Mr. Chairman. First, just to be sure that I understand this correctly, with respect to the sheriff's salary, is that remaining at the 136.7 that was appropriated in last year's budget? Will that be true this year as well, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, that is correct.
And lastly, page 376, we may need somebody at the Sheriff's Department here, but it says the Sheriff's Department is going to construct a court security base station. And I'm wondering if we get a little explanation of what the court security base station is, what the purpose of that project is.
Through the chair, I might be able to help with that, even without them being here. In the Hall of Justice, there is a centralized base station for court security. And one of the issues that we've had arise there, especially with, and I believe it's with the judges, is the fact that there is only presently a crash door system for them to be able to leave the building in the evening. And what we've attempted to do, because court security reimbursement has been lowered, we have attempted to try and scale back on the number of bodies that we're doing or having in that facility 24 hours a day. So effectively, this base station will be a monitoring facility for the entire building with the cameras and everything else that you would expect, along with a badged or a swipe ID system for judges to be able to go in and out of the building after hours and not have to have people effectively manning the doors. I know that's probably a loose term to use right now, but that's effectively what is happening today.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad to see that the director is here. I had a question to you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to, one of the things I was trying to do is understand how the DA's office and the sheriff's office are both elected positions, and then the director is appointed by the executive, and how those all kind of flow under one department. It kind of, curious of how that kind of works. I do have some experience legislating, governing elected officials, and they seem to move up the ranks to lieutenant governor and other positions. So I'm a leader in all pursuits. But anyway, that's just a good joke. Specifically to the department that you manage, approximately how many employees are in the Department of Public Safety? Of what is this office called? Public. How many are in your department? Approximately, Mr. Burns. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. No. The whole department.
Through the chair, I think there may be a little bit of confusion. The four departments are individually have their own, two of them elected officials, two of them, one of them appointed by this body, and then one appointed by the county executive. What we did here today is try to present all the departments that come in under the auspices of the Public Safety Committee, and so we kind of roll them all together from a budget perspective. And so I don't know if your question regarding the personnel in those departments is individually or in total. So I guess that's what I need additional clarification.
That's right. See, that's why, you know. So yes, it's going to be just for this, excluding the DA's office and excluding the sheriff's office and excluding the public defender's office. What department that leaves us with? And that is what I'm asking about.
Through the chair, there's full-time equivalents of 273.
Great. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, of these 273, approximately, how many of those are managerial or professional positions, do we think, roughly?
Through the chair, I'd just be guessing at this point, but that is information that we can provide you.
Okay, thank you. I think it may be about 32 or so, I'm thinking. But thank you, I like the information. Of these managerial and professional people who information will be provided to shortly, but then that I'm guessing is around 32 to 35. How many of them in these managerial and professional positions are non-white minorities? It's a diversity question. Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, we'll have to get that information to you.
Okay, great. Just as a comment through you, Mr. Chairman, I was just hoping to see some of these types of initiatives and objectives in our 2013 budget objectives. I'll move on to the next question. Under page 364 in the DA's office, the fifth bullet gives us an idea of some town hall meetings. Some of us, we believe that's a pretty good idea, and we was curious of how many meetings there will be, and if that information will be given out to us so that, you know, others can attend with enough notice.
Through the chair, they've advised me that the meetings will be monthly and there will be open to the public and there will be sufficient public notice given regarding the location and time and date of each of those meetings.
Okay, thank you. My next question, on page 264, public safety communications. How much of the $10,769,754 of contractual services is being paid to the M3S?
Through the chair, $10.4 million is a scheduled payment in 2013.
Thank you. My next question to you, Mr. Chairman. On page 497, Stop DWI, there is $61,956 budgeted in the 2013 for other expenses. This is up from the $8,512 in 2011 and the $14,249 in 2012. So, you know, what are we been using this? What are we been using this these funds for?
Through the chair, this is a grant for the Victim Impact Panel that is held through the Stop DWI coordination.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, my next question is regarding the Sheriff Road Patrol. What is Series 1, 2, and 3? And, you know, in the graph, it gives us an explanation. So how do you explain calls for, it doesn't give us an explanation of what zones 1, 2, and 3 are, but if you can tell me what those are. And how would you explain those calls for services in zone 1 and 2 being down and zone 3 being increased? So you can kind of tell us what zones 1, 2, and 3. Is anyone from the sheriff's office here? Or
Through the chair, they are on their way.
So, I'm sorry, Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
So a representative from the sheriff's office is on his way, or his or her way. So what we will do is we'll leave it open for questions when that individual arrives.
I have one final question, Mr. Chairman. I think that's it, right? Why are the agency contracts in the Emergency Management Division going down so dramatically? It's page 505.
Through the chair, as I attempted to identify in the presentation, that is grants that will be accepted throughout the year that are not in the queue at this point in time.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to just say that I think that the administration is very knowledgeable on the budget, and I can see. Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this point? Legislator
Mr. Chairman, under the Office of Public Safety, it speaks about a lot of new mandates that New York State's going to be coming down with. Is it going to be same-o with no relief, or do we expect to get some funding for these mandates?
Through the chair, I think at this point in time, the mandates that would be coming down, we would anticipate some offsetting state or federal revenue, but with them being new mandates, as I think a lot of people say when they see a budget, the devil's in the details as to what we'll actually get. So I think it's definitely a concern of ours, but we don't anticipate it being anything that would impact this particular budget that's in front of you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Dare.
Are there any other questions? Legislator Boyce.
Yes, through the chair. If you could answer the question with regards to, there's a generation connectivity, easy for me to say, device that's being tested. Can you talk about that? That's in the budget.
Through the chair, can you provide a page number or reference?
I apologize.
No,
That would
that's
be page 254. Or no, I'm sorry, 253.
Through the chair, I apologize to do this to you again, but which bullet or paragraph are you
It's the
reading
last
that from?
bullet on page 253. Through the chair. If you want to get back to me, that would be fine. Oh, yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ginny Satter from Central Police Services. We provide a device in the police vehicles. Right now what they have, it's called a Nexus Hawk, and now we have a different device that we're testing. It's called an AirLink. And one of the problems with the Hawk is that the Verizon cards, they're no longer making the specific size cards, so you can't insert them into the device, where these AirLinks actually have the chip or whatever, like a air card right in the device. So that also will help with inventory because we won't have two devices to keep track of as well.
So, through the chair, what information is I guess I haven't seen this in action, so I don't know exactly what information are we able to provide our sheriffs with by having this device?
Through the chair, I think what it's effectively doing is providing connectivity back to their computerized systems that they need to be able to access.
Okay.
And 911 while they're out on the road is effectively what this program is doing.
Okay, thank you. Also, Mr. Hanna, through the chair, how are the decreases in the federal aid being absorbed in the Office of Emergency Management? And that's on page 271.
Through the chair, as we pointed out in the presentation, in emergency management, the majority of those dollars are grants that are accepted throughout the year.
Okay.
So effectively, we won't be absorbing any additional costs until those grants actually are approved by this body.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two follow-up questions. One for probation, page 261, the number of jail days saved by something called the domicile restriction program is dropping about 9,000 or about 25 people per day since 2011. And I'm wondering if this is related to the cut in funding for the pretrial release program, or what explanation we might have for that drop.
Through the chair, Bob Burns from probation. It's not at all related to pretrial services. There's a calculation that the state of New York provides for us that very specifically calculates the number of jail beds or jail days saved. And that projection of a slightly lower number was simply based on the first 6 months use of electronic monitoring with new judges, with judges whose sentencing decisions might change. That number could change and rise dramatically as well. But there's no connection with pretrial.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, through you, Mr. Chairman, page 501, and I think on page 674, where we talk about the unified court system, expenses exceed revenue by $4 million, a little over $4 million in 2013. And I'm wondering why that is, and I'm wondering whether the state will reimburse these costs or most of them.
Through the chair, regarding the judicial system support area, the net county support being provided is actually less, so there is increased state and state aid as well as reduced expenditures in that area. So the actual net county portion of that, which I think you thought was increasing, is actually decreasing.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. We do have a representative from the Sheriff's Department here now, and I believe that there was at least 2 unanswered questions regarding calls for the zones, and I don't remember what the first one was, but if they could be repeated.
Mr. Chairman, the first one was, and through you, why has the, page 389 with respect to the jail, why has participant hours in the inmate work program dropped by 10,000 hours since 2011? That's on page 389, if that helps.
Lieutenant Phelps, Sheriff's Administration. The work release program has been a subject of discussion with Jail Superintendent Harling and his staff regarding use of resources. There's a lot of expense that goes with it, and it's been under discussion on how to improve those numbers. And I cannot give you a specific answer for that at this time, but I can get the answer for you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. My chair is regarding zones 1, 2, and 3, or series 1, 2, and 3. Well, we're just trying to figure out the difference between what was listed in the budget, page 382. Can you define those 3 different zones? Will you? Will you define? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, the three series refer to the zones, A, B, and C. A is the eastern third of Monroe County. B is the southern portion of Monroe County from Henrietta to the county line. And C is the western portion of Monroe County, which has actually seen a steady increase in calls for service.
So that's just leading to my next question, Mr. Chairman, of your comment on, why is there an increase in the Zone 3, which is the western side, and the other 2 sides, or the south and the east side, are going down, Zones 1 and 2.
Through the chair, it's actually a fairly complex answer. C's on the western portion of the county has had some population growth, as well as an increasing use of heroin, which has led to an increasing of burglaries, criminal mischiefs, car larcenies, and offender against dealers and users, which are basically going out of the west side of the city, is leaking into a variety of crimes in the western portion of the county. So there's a lot of reasons for the increased calls for service. Part of it also goes to proactive police work by the deputies. The calls for service on the west side tend to be less complex. The eastern and southern portion of the county, Henrietta, Penfield, Pennington, Pittsford, have a lot more forgeries, frauds, and large number of participant crimes than they do on the western side. As a consequence, the deputies are more tied up for longer periods of times, and so it's difficult to say. I wouldn't say that C-zone is busier. They have more calls for service, but time on job on B-zone and A-zone is probably longer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was well informed.
Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other question for the Sheriff's Office. With respect to the Civil Bureau, it appears that each year we're falling farther behind in matching revenues from fees with expenses, and as a result, net county support of the Civil Bureau operation is increasing. It looks like it was, net county support was 25% of costs roughly in 2011, up to 46% of costs in 2013. I'm wondering why that is and if there's anything we can do to reverse that trend. I'm referencing page 379.
Through the chair, you may regret asking that question. The fees regarding the Civil Bureau are all state mandated fees. We cannot increase them without an act of the state legislature, which hopefully after January 1st we will have one more supporter to push forward that legislation to allow for just that to happen.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
I was going to suggest that, Legislator O'Brien. Are there any other questions? Legislator Boyce.
This would be with regards through the chair to the district attorney's office, and I see the DWI Bureau is funded, it looks at like $500,000. I'm noticing, you know, as we've gone through up to this point, 11 months into our legislative process, there's been a lot of grants that we've been taking in for DWI crackdown and things of that nature. So can you give me a breakdown of the DWI Bureau and how the expenses in that area? There's nothing specific, but
Through the chair, there are actually no grants in the DWI Bureau. Those dollars that are there as far as the appropriations goes are more for expert witnesses and salaries of the attorneys that are prosecuting those particular arrests.
okay, so I guess maybe the question would be, the funding that we're receiving, I guess more actually is going towards the sheriff, through the chair, going to the sheriff's department. Do you feel that your DWI Bureau and the DA's office is sufficient in order to meet the needs of what we're doing on the streets to crack down on DWI?
Thank you. Through the chair, Sandra Dorley, District Attorney. You know, we do have an increasing number of DWI arrests every year, and over the last year we've expanded the number of DAs who have been assigned to that bureau. Originally it was 3 attorneys, now it's gone up to 5 attorneys. The caseloads are tremendous. You know, right now we're able to handle the caseload, but if it increases as arrests have increased historically over the years, we will probably be coming to the county and asking for one more attorney to fill, to be assigned to that bureau. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I would like to thank you again, Mr. Adair, and actually I'd like to thank all of the individuals who put all the effort into putting together this budget. Obviously, it is not a small task, and it is very much appreciated. So, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the October 22nd, 2012 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 12-314, acceptance of a
Moved by
grant.
Legislator Michike, seconded by Legislator Boyce. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-315, acceptance of a grant.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion? Legislator Boyce.
Yes, through the chair to the, I guess it would be, if public defender's still here. It talks about the Southern Public Defender Training Center. When we talk about the southern, is that the southern portion of New York? Or is this a national? I guess I'm just curious as to what the Southern Public Defender Training Center is.
Tim Donaher, Public Defender, through you, Mr. Chairman. The Southern Public Defender Training Center is based in in Alabama. It's actually a new training center that's available for public defender offices. It's a partner with an organization called Equal Justice Works that oversees something called the Public Defender Corps, which is a specialized fellowship program for training public defenders across the country.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-316.
Moved by legislator Yolovich, seconded by legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-317.
Moved by legislator Quattro, seconded by legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, legislator Boyce.
Through the chair, I know that this was mandated that the interlock be mandated to those who, I think it's second offense, or is it through the chair? But how many of those have not been able to pay the fee? Because I know it was a pretty hefty fee with the interlock device.
Through the chair, it's mandated on all DWI convictions.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first year or so of the mandate for ignition interlock, where the offender is supposed to pay the fee, unless the offender, according to the judge, is not able to make the payment, we saw some significant waivers in the first year where the vendors had to make the payments for the offenders.
Right.
Those numbers have stabilized. Monroe County is no longer identified as a county with a significantly high waiver rate. But I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's not part of this referral. I can get the specific waiver numbers if you'd like them.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-318.
Moved by legislator Rocco, seconded by legislator Michike. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-319.
Moved by legislator Michike, seconded by legislator Boyce. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-320.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-321.
Moved by legislator Yolovich, seconded by legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-322.
Moved by legislator Quattro, seconded by legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-323.
Moved by legislator Rocco, seconded by legislator Michike. Is there any discussion? Legislator Boyce.
Sorry. Mr. Hanna, through the chair, I'm going to ask with regards to this funding that we're using, how much of it is being used for actual public information, how much is being used for administration costs?
Again, Ginny Satter, this grant actually pays for one person to go out and do public education.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before the committee this evening? Seeing none, this meeting of the November 26, 2012 Public Safety Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Public Safety Committee is scheduled for December 17th, 2012.